We have our first guest up here, and I am so happy, Veronica, that we finally got you here. And you and I think our first real working together and encounter was on the campaign a couple of years back.
Which campaign, Kate?
That would be the Chewy for Mayor campaign, which was a hard-fought and well-fought on our end of the city campaign. We actually managed to win in this ward. And you are from the 50th ward, our neighbors to the west, and you've been doing a lot of organizing on a lot of different fronts. You're the director of the UIC Latinx, and you got to tell me how to say that. We'll talk about that. STEM office, and you are community organizer, as I mentioned.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hey,
Good morning.
And you got your Cubby shirt on,
Yeah,
for all you in
Cubbies.
Radio Land. I do not have my Sox shirt on because that would be just rude in the postseason.
It's all right. I'm already a Sox fan.
It's a mixed marriage. We love that. We love that. Those are like when they do the crosstown games.
But yes.
I love those games because every play is cheered by somebody.
Yes.
And it's so sweet.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, tell us what's going on. Well, first of all, with the UIC program, what is that? And tell me the right way to use language.
Okay. So UIC is a Hispanic serving institution, meaning that our undergraduates are at least 25. Now we're closer to 30%. Students who identify as Latino, Hispanic, Latinx. So,
Latinx, okay.
Right. So
that's better than Latinx, which was what
I've
I was
heard it said both ways.
Okay.
So Latin with the X at the end is being used as a all-inclusive term.
So that's like gender-free.
Gender-free.
Instead of O or A.
Right.
Exactly.
Correct.
X. Long live the X's.
So I've also now seen the Filipino community using that as well. Instead of O and A at the end for Filipino, it's a Philippine X.
So
I'm not sure how it says.
Since we started here, what about the native Spanish, or for that matter, other Romance languages that have gender right in the way the words are used?
So I have seen a lot of throwdowns on the internet about what are we going to use. If we're going to use the X at the end of Latin for inclusiveness, are we going to start throwing the X on the end of every word? I'm not sure. I'm not a linguist. I kind of feel like I follow what the community tells us, what the LGBTQ community tells us, suggests as language. So I'm taking my lead from them.
Well, we'll do the same. Being of an older generation, we need generally our.
We may stumble and fall a little on it, but
Sure.
we'll get better.
If you've listened to this show, you know that our intern Morgan, who is at UIC, teaches us regularly. She instructs us on these things.
That's the great thing about working at a university. I feel like I get these things pretty early. The students inform me. Our Gender and Sexuality Center is amazing at educating us.
Legendary, actually.
Yes.
So let's talk about what you do there.
Yeah, so
And what it
UIC
means.
is a Hispanic serving institution, and last October, we just celebrated our first year of having this grant through the U.S. Department of Education. We have to serve our Latinx science, technology, engineering, and math students. So that's what I've been doing the last year, is hoping to start up this office. And we are going to be working on making sure that UIC is the best campus, at least in the Midwest, if not the country. Let's say, put some high benchmarks for myself, and to serve science, engineering, technology, and math students. So through different things like transition coaches, we have 2 staff members who are working with high schoolers and city college students on that transition from where they are to UIC to make that as smooth as possible. We also have peer leaders. This year we have 30 pairs. Those are 30 students who volunteered their time to help incoming students
to get themselves oriented.
ramped up. Some of the hardest parts of that college transition is just finding your space, your social space.
Sure.
So we are saying,
It's kind of scary.
Here's a student who knows who is good in their classroom and is engaged in the community, and they want to make sure you're engaged as well.
Sweet.
And we also have a paid research experience. And we're also working on conversations to decolonize science and scientific knowledge.
Wow. I'm
That's a
reading,
lot.
I'm reading a book right now called it's a science. Never mind. I can't remember.
Yeah, well, let's just move right along
Yeah,
here.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to
Veronica Arreola, it's always great to have you on the show. You are a political person, political animal, political being.
Yes.
What's your take on what's going on in politics, particularly on the
city.
north side, or let's do the city? What's going on?
There's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of conversations happening, so it's an exciting time to be a community organizer. And one of the things we wanted to talk about today is happening out of those conversations. So, over this earlier this year.
What, these are direct conversations with people or throwdowns on the internet?
No, I think that they're real conversations among people. So earlier this year, through a response of some increase in car thefts and property thefts in the 50th Ward, some neighbors were concerned about this and worked with our alderman to start a community watch, a neighborhood watch. And even had the alderman donate money to purchase jackets so that people could literally walk around the neighborhood in these yellow, orange coats, kind of like rain jackets, to alert people who shouldn't be in the neighborhood that we're watching you. And so
This is bordering on the spooky.
This Halloween season.
And some of us felt the same way. We felt uncomfortable with the idea of other neighbors walking around surveilling, especially since really we're living in a time where, Black Lives Matter, Black and brown, especially young men, don't have as much freedom to walk around neighborhoods. They're walking home and they're being surveilled. They're walking to their workplaces and they're being stopped by police, neighbors, saying, "What are you doing here?" And so some of us had some conversations, including Sarah Manwith, who's been organizing in the 50th, and Ahmed Khan, who we know organizes a lot in the 50th and around the city, about what we could do to create community, create a sense of safety, but not surveil.
How's that going?
We think it's going all right.
What have you learned from it? That's a huge and important distinction that you're making, and that a lot of us have worked with when we go to CAPS meetings, et cetera, et cetera. It is the central question.
It is the central question. So we started talking about positive loitering, but we also know that positive loitering has been co-opted in a lot of different spaces and has brought in police, and we don't want to bring in police, not because we are anti-police, but we know that for some communities, the police are not seen as safe.
Yeah.
So if we're going to create a safe and supportive community, we wanted to do that without police presence. So we ditched the positive loitering. And that's when Sarah thought had this idea of Sundays on the sidewalk, just getting a lawn chair and a drink and just sitting outside and saying hi to the people who walk past your house. And just talk to them and maybe engage them in a conversation, or just, how's your day going? And when you do that, we've done it a couple of times. When I've done that, people will stop and what are you doing out here? It helps that we also have this little library in front of our house, so people might stop and look at a book too. But I tell them I'm out here because I want to create a stronger community. I want to know my neighbors better. I'm really guilty of going to work, coming home, being locked in my apartment, all those sorts of things. But when I talk to them about let's create a supportive community without having to have a neighborhood watch, they're like, yeah, it just takes a few minutes to get people to go from that logic of, we shouldn't, just because I don't know who you are, Katie, doesn't mean I should call the police and say, hey, there's this strange lady outside of my house.
And let's face facts. I would not be, you would not call the police on me.
Right.
Most of the people in the neighborhood would not. We know who the people would call the police on, and you describe it, young black men.
Latino men too.
And Latino men, and
well, I wanted
any perceived other, right?
Yes.
So, okay, go ahead.
We're talking about the 50th Ward. For the people who don't know the 50th Ward, it's a pretty diverse ward.
Yes.
I mean, just give us a little description on that.
We're a really diverse ward, but I would also add that we're fairly segregated as well. So we're actually one of the wards that's most like a square. So we have these quadrants, And I live on at the southeast quadrant, where we have a lot of immigrants. We have a lot of Middle Eastern, Latino, Latinx people who are living there. A lot of apartments and condos. Our northwest corner are more the bungalow area. We have some Orthodox Jews, and then in the other corners, it feels like that merging. That's where the blending kind of happens in the other corners. So we still have some bungalows, but we also have a lot of apartment buildings, and so we have people from a lot of different places. We kind of call ourselves like the UN of the city.
A rainbow deal.
Yes, we do.
Let me ask you, you had mentioned that you're working on this project of talking to people on the street with your alder person, which I think is Silverman, is that her name? Silverstein.
So
she is not known as a real progressive. And I know that you have, in your outfit, have a number of people who would definitely say you were progressive types to the max. And I just wondered how that relationship is and where you see that going, because there will be an aldermanic election coming up, and the same people might be with her or with an opposition candidate.
Correct. So she does know that some of the stuff is happening. I haven't had a chance to sit down and talk to her about how she's feeling about this, because honestly, for me, this action is a direct response to creating a system that is encouraging neighbors to surveil and call police on each other.
Oh, nice.
Not everybody who participates may take that same strong stand, but for me, it definitely is. I've even been giving out signs to my neighbors that say, I talk to my neighbors, I don't surveil them.
Mm-hmm. That's nice.
So,
good rap.
Yeah, there is an aldermanic election coming up soon. Our ward has never really had a really good election since the Nazi Dolar day, when I worked on that campaign. And
We came close.
What does that mean, a really good election? We haven't had a
Well, we had
Well, we haven't. Well, we haven't had a lot of good choices or a good campaign. So I know Ahmed Khan ran one year, but it wasn't. I didn't know him then, and so it's about getting not only a strong candidate but having a strong campaign.
Yeah.
As we all know.
Yeah.
We've all worked on campaigns before.
Well, and hopefully we will again. One of the things that happens to me every time I look around at the campaign structure in Chicago, I'm always reminded Harold Washington introduced us all to one another in his campaign. And a lot of us from way all that time back continue to know each other and recognize each other in moments like this, when I've got 50th Ward activism burgeoning, and there's a couple faces there that date back to then. What is, last question, and then we gotta go to Alondra. How do you see feminism being reshaped? Did you take part in the Women's March?
I did participate.
Wasn't that something?
It was amazing.
It was amazing.
It was.
I think everybody at this table was there.
Yeah, everybody here. How about out there?
Just call us X's.
All right. We have quite a few. What do you think, where are we going with the women's-led part of the movement?
Particularly with Trump's
Yes.
actions.
Well, if we wouldn't be in this mess if the powers that be at the Democratic National Committee had listened to Black and brown women over the last forever.
Yeah.
Because we're the ones who've been leading these conversations, these tough conversations. We're leading Black Lives Matter. We're leading these conversations that are, as we like to say, is intersectional. Taking all of the parts of our lives and talking about why the fact that our young men can't walk on the street without being interrupted, as well as our economic rights, our reproductive rights, all of these sorts of things are in the same conversation, and there will be the litmus test is making sure that those are all in the same conversation.
That's an excellent answer. Really, women of color leading has been going on my entire life. Women of color.
I know
leading.
Katie said that was the last question, but is there anything that you
See, this happens
really
too.
want to talk about? I'm looking at the clock, Kate. And is there anything you would like to talk about or share with us that we haven't asked you about yet?
Oh, wow, there's a whole long list, but
Yeah.
I think we've covered all of this really well. I mean, I've been active in doing some of this community organizing. My husband's been organizing in the ward. He's been leading the organization to get us a new library. So I really feel like this is a really exciting moment. It's a very scary moment, but I feel less scared when I'm out in the neighborhood. I'm organizing with people, which is why I threw down with Reclaim Chicago. That's why I'm doing this stuff on the sidewalk. When I get scared in these moments, I have to be out talking to people and connecting with people, not
Great.
sitting on my couch eating gelato, although I still do that.
Here's to sitting on couches eating gelato. May we all have those moments as well as moments of real victory with our
Veronica, we have you on for a longer
Organizing.
segment next time when we want to
Totally.
continue keeping up. Are you going to run for Parliament?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't know. Well, hey, let's.
You're going to leave it to Ahmed Khan?
I don't know if he's going to run either.
No. All right. Enough of that. We'll get a scoop next time. I know Tom is always up for the scoops, and Michael too.
Yeah,
I'm
we're
just
all
glad to
scoop
see
heads.
It's good to see you.
I'm glad to have you here. Thank you, Veronica Arreola.